Thanks for watching Wise Monkey. Please share and subscribe. Subscribe for a future grand prize. And today we'll show how to do a compression test on an engine like this, which is sitting outside the car on the crate. Before installing an engine, sometimes I would say it's a wise idea to do a compression test just to know the health of the engine. So this engine, as you can see, that's sitting on a crate kind of engine, you can say. The exhaust manifold is taken out, the engine, and the manual transmission that's here. What's important is to have this starter motor. There's the starter motor. I'll show you the connections. Now, to be able to do a compression test, few things: make sure that the engine, hopefully the engine is in neutral or at park. The transmission is in neutral or park. Even if it's not, you just have to make sure that the CV axles are not attached or they are not stuck. The engine is not resting on the CV axle. They are free to move. Now, take the spark plugs out, all four. Here is taken out, and attach a compression tester like this. Now, on this side, what I meant is, like this CV axle, the jack shaft is sitting on the frame, not binding. It can actually, it's free to rotate. As you can see, it's free to rotate. So even if it's on gear, it's going to spin. Make sure that's clear. So as the harmonic balancer right here, it's not stuck or anything. It's not stuck. It can spin easily. The belt is taken out, the alternator belt, and the alternator are not here. Even if they're there, it's not a big deal. It's not a problem. You can do the test. Now, to do a test like this, engine outside of the car, sitting on a crate, you don't need fuel. You don't need spark. All you need is the starter motor to engage and turn over the engine. So you need a good battery, a good well-charged battery like this one, and a thick booster cable. Not a thin one, not a crappy thin one like this. No, a good one like this. Now, this is the starter motor solenoid. So connect the positive of the booster cable to the one of the two big balls. They're same, they're all positive actually. So you'll find three connectors. One, a small about 12 gauge wire here, that one, and the other big one here, covered, that one. So this one and this one are same, but I'm gonna put this one here. So this one, not the one that's going inside the starter from solenoid to starter, no. Put it inside at the beginning of the solenoid, that one, and we have to give 12 volts to this other thin wire. This is coming from the ignition switch, ignition key. We don't have any ignition key here, of course. Everything is open. You can see this is the wiring harness. So we don't want to do that. We want to directly put 12 volts there. So the battery the positive is here, the other end of the positive, so as another thin wire. You can even put a 15 or 20 amp fuse in line of the other one. I didn't. I'm gonna directly hot wire with this. So from positive, this is gonna come and touch this, the other pin, this one. The third one, this one will stay covered. I don't need that. So positive battery to this one, and the other positive battery, other line from the positive battery to the other one, this one. So this will engage the solenoid. This will engage the solenoid as soon as we touch the negative of this negative of the terminal to this. Oh, by the way, the other end of the negative is grounded, like this, grounded to the body of the engine or transmission here in the mount. Near this thing is better, not on the other end of the engine. So this is connected, negative, positive to the positive, other end of the booster cable, positive to the battery positive. And as soon as we touch this, we also have to touch this positive to that, this one, and the engine should start to rotate. I'll do that in a second. Show the compression and actually show the crankshaft as well. Yeah. So I'll go. It gave about 160 psi, which is not great, but this engine is not in great shape anyway. The head needs to be done. But what we're gonna do is now take this one out and put about 10 milliliter of oil into the cylinder through the bore and do the test again. If the compression goes high, like 230, 240, which is the ideal for this engine, then piston rings are suspect. But if the compression doesn't go too high, maybe it sticks around 180, 200, so then piston rings are not as bad. It's most likely the head that's could be done. Now for this 150 or 170 psi, if all these cylinders has around that psi, 160, 170 is still good enough. Although this is a high compression engine, for most of the engines 130, 140 is good enough. But we found that number one has only 50 psi. When we added oil, it went to 80 psi. It didn't go to 180 or 200. That tells that either the valves or the head gasket leaking. Head gasket is actually, with this one, head gasket is leaking outside as well, like visibly. We could see that head gasket was leaking from the back here. So the head definitely has to be done for this case. So if the compression is that varying that much, like 50 psi is a dead hole, almost 30, 50 psi. So valve is probably burned, intake or exhaust. Now I'm gonna put some, actually before putting oil, I'm gonna do the number 4 cylinder. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is, by the way, this is H22A4 engine, Honda H22A4. I don't know if you could see H23A, H22A, H series or B series. They have high compression. So we hooked up here. Show this side. This is number 4. Now we're gonna crank again. Show a little bit here. Yeah, so this is how, yeah. So this went actually 200 psi. That's pretty good. So if one cylinder's rings are that good, that means it's most likely not this cylinder piston rings. It's the head gasket and the valves that has to be, and valve seals that has to be done. But the main idea of this video is to show how to connect, where to connect, and get the engine going when it's outside of the car. It's completely sitting on a crate. So we connected the gauge to number 1 piston, and when I see number 1 had like only 50 psi yesterday, it could be also because the battery was weak. Let's see. Going. So that came out only about 90, 100 psi. That's not good. 100 psi is not good for this kind of engine. So I'll add some oil here. So I'm gonna put about 10 millimeter of oil, or right in there in the cylinder, and then hook up this one. I'll crank it again. Yeah. Well, it went to 150, but it went to 150 after like 10-15 cranks, which is not right. Usually it should be at after 4 or 5 cranks it was around 110, 120. So I could say that from 90 to 120. But it could be also because the piston rings are just needs cleaning. There's a way to clean it without opening the pistons. I'll show that. Stay tuned for that video. I'll show that actually how to clean the piston rings without opening the engine, without opening the head. Okay, stay tuned. Actually, many engines can, any engine can use that method. High mileage engines. So this is it for now. Please share and subscribe. There will be many more informative videos that will hopefully help work safe. And just to recap quickly, if you are checking the compression outside like this, then make sure the starter motor is connected, the tranny is there. If you don't have the tranny, what to do, right? Well, if you don't have the tranny connected here, just the engine block, you can still put a starter motor with this gap. You have to know this gap and put a for this bolt, put a sleeve here, or put another nut, big nut of this width, exactly this width, and another at the back this width, and then install the starter motor. Once you install the starter motor, and then rest is simple as I showed. Positive comes here, the other positive comes to this this tiny connector here for the solenoid. Both of those positives comes to the battery's positive. The negative is grounded. Other end of the negative, as soon as you touch it here, the engine will turn over. Make sure the CV axles are not touching anything, because in case if it's not in neutral or park, it will start to spin. Both ends. This end has nothing here. So as the harmonic balancer is not, or the belt, if you have the belt here, is not touching anything. Okay, hope this helps. Please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.